you, Kitty. Thank you, David. That was beautiful. So whenever I go to give a talk or think about giving a talk, I never know what to talk about. But about a million ideas eventually come forward. And this one, somebody said we don't talk enough about interfaith. What is interfaith? It's what we are. It's at our center. But I read a couple of books, parts of a couple of books. I will never read a whole book. So you're only going to get part of the story. So, finding your religion. When the faith you grew up with has lost its meaning, Scotty McLennan. It's a good book. I found it in the library, as I do many books. And this one I had at home. I think it belongs to Larry. It's called Beyond Religion, 8 Alternative Paths to the Sacred. So if you want to know those 8 paths, you have to read the book, because I'm going to speak of it in a different way. So Scotty McLennan talks about talks about 6 stages to spirituality, and starting when we're very young. The first stage is magic, where there is an all-powerful God. The second stage, and we're maybe starting at 2 years old or 3 years old. And then by the time we're 7, we go into the reality stage, where there is a cause and effect God. We ask our parents, is this real? And we ask our parents why. And they tell us it's because of what we did or didn't do that this happens. I mean, it's crazy. This is what I think. It's crazy. Stage 3 is dependence, where God becomes our parent. And as parents, we teach this. We're crazy. But we do. We tend to follow what's in our culture. And our children get it. If not from us as parents, they get it from other kids. I always have affirmed that children learn at least half of what they learn from their peers. So the 4th stage is independence, where God becomes a distant God. God becomes frequently, for many of us, an atheist. We become atheists. And that stage is when we are teenagers. Then the 5th stage and the 6th stage are what I'm going to focus on today. The 5th stage is interdependence, where God becomes paradoxical. And I wanted to read a little bit about this. As this stage of interdependence is the reconciliation of the previous stages of dependence and independence, people at this spiritual level live in a dialectical yin and yang world in which they are able to tolerate ambiguity and seeming contradiction and enjoy complexity. And this is where most of us are, I feel. This is where I feel I am, and I feel where our community is, and we're reaching toward the last stage, the stage of unity. And I believe that we frequently touch that stage, but that stage is the stage of mysticism. So in this stage of interdependence, we intellectually understand the divine as an impersonal force in the universe. Instead of taking an inter-or approach to life, people at interdependent stage are able to see all sides of an issue at the same time. And we know that as we look around us in the world, that's not happening. It's really not happening. But if we can do it, it's wonderful. It's amazing. And it is a marker of our own spiritual maturity. So the last stage is called unity, and it is when we become one with God. We have a direct awareness of oneness of all existence. Yin and yang and all other forms of paradox now disappear into undivided unity. People at this stage speak of God in an all-pervasive sense. God is felt to be in everything, and everything seems to exist in God. As a result, they possess a universalizing compassion and a vision of universal community beyond all forms of tribalism. It goes on to say about how ego attachment will disappear, and individuals at this stage of spiritual awareness are able and willing to speak and share with people of other faith stages and from any other religious tradition. And I think that's really interesting, and it really says something about interfaith, that we really are able to do this. So my path went from Catholicism, and when I became a teenager and went to college, and after college I became a Unitarian. Then I dabbled in Buddhism. Then I went to the Church of Religious Science when I got to Santa Fe from British Columbia. And when I got here, I went to Unity and finally to Interfaith. And I want to and that's my story. That's my that's my process. And many of us do this. And I'm interested, when we have the open mic time, to hear where you have come from. Because we all got here from there, wherever there is. So Larry was a Lutheran. Then he was Christian Science, went into Christian Science and divine science when he matured. Went to college. Then he went to Church of Religious Science, and that's where we met. There in the middle of all of this was where we met, at the Church of Religious Science. And he went to Unity when we got here, and then to Interfaith when we got here. And I think Larry is somewhere out there beyond. He's out there somewhere in the beyond, and I don't know where that is. Maybe he doesn't know where he is either. So, emotional and physical healing crises often happen in this progress toward freeing ourselves into spirituality. And I suggest that what we need to do is to lean towards what brings us joy, like Esther said, the joy, and more quiet time, perhaps. But this idea of the healing crisis frequently happens. And for me, it was more an emotional crisis. It wasn't so much a healing crisis. But Larry talked about a healing crisis he went through, and I know that's true for a lot of you, that you go through a healing crisis. And also, the path to spirituality brings peak experiences and dreadful experiences as well. And sometimes the healing crisis is the what is it called? The dark night of the soul. And I believe that is something that we create. If we don't do it emotionally, we do it physically. We know that going through this is going to help us. And frequently we do not know how much it helps us until we get to the other side. And it's very difficult. It's very difficult to think of this experience as a positive in our life for a long time. It takes a long time. But most of the dreadful things that have happened, I've found a way, if not to think of, to think of them in a better light. Always to think of them in a better light. It's always possible to see the bigger picture. But I'm interested, I'm always very interested in my own spiritual experiences. These peak experiences that people have on their path to freedom, on their path along to spirituality from religion and from cultural consciousness and world consciousness. So I've had a few. So I'll tell you about one when I was 10 years old. And this kind of experience has happened to me a few times. It's always happens to me out in nature. I was looking across the meadow from the house, not from the house, toward the house, and I was walking, and I was quite young, I was about 10 years old, and I just had the sense that I was one with everything. And it was very mind expanding to me, and it was important because I felt like at that time I was living in two worlds. I was living with my family, and yet I had to find a way to escape the negativity and the yelling and the emotional distress that was my experience of my family life. And so I spent a lot of time out in nature. And nature did become my first source for spirituality in my life. And it was these kinds of experiences when I was young were very powerful because they made me see that what I was experiencing in my family life was not all there was to life. And for some reason, and I don't know exactly why or how, I maintained some kind of faith. Even in the distress I felt, I recognized that there was more. And that may have been part of my Catholic religion. I don't know. In a way, I need to be grateful because it's very possible that that's what I was taught. That I was taught that there was spirit, that there was a God. Even though I can't say I really believe in God right now, in the truth of my spirituality, I don't know that I do. But at that time, when life was very difficult for me, I obviously did believe in God, because my faith came from somewhere, and it may not have come from my belief in God, but it's very possible that it did. And another experience I had, which was I was living in Santa Fe, and my house faced east, and I walked out into the front steps, and the sun was coming up over the Sangre de Cristo Mountains, as it did every morning, and it was always beautiful. But this morning I saw the beginnings of the sun, and I had the notion that I was brighter than the sun. And I believe that, and I know now that that's totally true. But that was a nice thing to happen. And I'm sure things like that have happened to you, where you are able, willing, and powerfully opened up to possible possible spirituality in your life. So I have some suggestions for you. I'm always full of advice. So make your life your prayer. Do what is right for you. Do what feels best. Do what your inner guidance tells you. Listen to your inner guidance. And do what is in front of you. And do it the best you can. And don't do things that are not for you to do. And don't ask for things that are not for you to have. And of course, always have faith. Share in community. We need each other. No matter what each of us believes, we need each other in community together. We are always learning and teaching others. We are learning from each other all the time. We are divine and we are human. And it's important to remember both of those things. And the more you're able to embrace your humanity, the more you will be able to embrace your spirituality as well. The part of you that's spirit, part of you that is living, the spiritual part of you that is living through your humanity. I suggest that we accept everything we see. Accept it in a way that offers compassion to those who act in ways that we would, that we don't like. Accept it and know that it's not who we are. I think that sometimes these negative things are offered to us to allow us to get clearer and clearer about who we really are. So when we hear something on the news, as I do, people acting badly, we need to pray for them. We need to have compassion. We need to understand that they're doing the best they can. And we would never do that, but ourselves. But they're doing the best they can. So here's a few words from Gloria Karpinski from her book called Barefoot on Holy Ground. And it's a book that they use at One Spirit Seminary. Illuminated beings have emerged from all paths, and they have left us legacies of immeasurable value. Regardless of emphasis, they agree on many points. Look inside self for the truth. Breathe with awareness. Pay attention. Be still and listen. Have faith. Accept grace. There's grace all around you. And breathe and accept it. Be grateful. Walk without harm. Sometimes I think my criticism is just as harmful to me and to others as the subject of my criticism. So in all ways, we need to own what we project, what we produce, what we express. We need to own it. Love all life unconditionally. Forgive everybody, everything. And serve. The idea of service is very powerful because we hear it is better to give than to receive. But it's not. Giving and receiving is just two sides of the same coin. And we cannot give without receiving. But never give if it is taking away something from you. We don't give lightly, we give powerfully. It is a great expression of power to give. So there's this wonderful poem by Hafez, which I want to conclude with. I have learned so much from God that I can no longer call myself a Christian, a Hindu, a Muslim, a Buddhist, or a Jew. The truth has shared so much of itself with me that I can no longer call myself a man, a woman, an angel, or even a pure soul. Love has befriended Hafiz so completely, it has turned to ash and freed me of every concept and image my mind has ever known. So let's take a few moments and go inside. And take a deep breath. And feel that sense of freedom that truly is our light, that truly is our heritage, that truly is our gift from the God of our understanding. Every thought we think, every feeling we have, can be transmuted into love, can be known as a divine self. We breathe in deep gratitude, in deep sharing. In deep compassion. And so it is. Amen. Now it's open mic time.
I have it back here.